Next to the president, is the Secretary of Defense. Understand, he's above the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's above the commandant. He's above anything that there is. If Pete Hegseth told a member of the armed services, you got to charge that machine gun nest, you got to charge that machine gun nest. You don't have any choice. And think of the great people that have been defense secretaries in the history of the United States. This guy, how do they look at themselves in the mirror?
Hey, James. Andy Beshear is one impressive politician. He was really, to be honest, my second choice for Harris's VP behind Josh Shapiro, but I think he was right up there. I can hear now, looking ahead, some lefties are going to complain that he's not liberal enough. He's pro-choice. He vetoed an anti-DEI bill. As he told us, he vetoed an anti-trans bill. He's done, terrific things with the Kentucky economy. And I think when you talk about that really impressive farm club that the Democrats have, the most impressive maybe in your lifetime, he is certainly in that small list of at the very top.
I just hope the thing that gets to me the most is people say, what are we going to do? I got no choice. I got to run. The Democrats have no one. I just hope that people that say this listen to this podcast. In any top tier Democrat that's thinking about running for president can come on this show and they'll get the same harsh treatment that Governor Beshear got.
Oh my God. James, you were brutal.
How about this shit, man? I'll tell you, there ain't no favoritism going on here.
Well, no, it was really, he's a really interesting.
It's terrific.
Really
terrific.
I think it's, he's one of the few Democrats, I may exaggerate this, but not much, who talks openly about his faith.
Right.
I don't know why that's anything but admirable and a plus.
Well, you got to give Governor Shapiro, he like to die practicing his faith.
Yeah, he does. He does. And others
do
too, but
some Mitch Landrieu, he talks about it he's very informed. He's Catholic you.
Yeah.
You're right. People need to hear more Democrats discuss this and kind of openly, and I think it matters to a lot of people. And boy, I tell you, with this Pope Francis thing, I think has just done a world of good, not just for the Catholic Church, but for just religion itself. He was such a forceful advocate for people, and it was so much about what we're taught that being a Christian should be about. And he really, really exemplified that. Or just what being a human being is about. If you're Buddhist or maybe Jewish or anything, even if you're secular, he really taught us all how to live, how we should treat other people.
No, he sure did. I'm not a Catholic, you are, but I can't count how many lapsed Catholics in the last 10 years that said, he's making me think about it again. He really was the modern version of Pope John.
Right.
And I think there wasn't a lot of doctrine or anything changed. There still aren't women priests. Gays still can't be married officially. But he brought a presence. He brought a charm. He brought a humanity. He really worried and was deeply committed to the poor. I'll never forget that picture there was this man who was just terribly disfigured. It was so disfigured.
Right.
Warts all over his face, and people in buses would and the first thing Francis did was run up and hug him. And I think on his last day of his life, he saw the vice president, J.D. Vance. They were both very hospitable to one another. But the great irony is that Vance is one of the great immigration bashers in the world. And one of Francis's last words, I think that afternoon, Easter Sunday, was to talk about the plight of migrants and the humanity of it and the need to treat them with compassion. He was extraordinary.
It was very, very, very extraordinary. We'll be watching the conclave with great interest. As you and I were talking on the phone, the producers of that movie, it could be the happiest people in the world.
Oh, it's perfect. And the ending won't be the same. Let me tell one story about that, which is our dear old friend, late friend, Tim Russer. Tim Russer, about 25 years ago, was taking the Today Show to Rome, and he was hoping they could have a brief audience with the Holy Father. And Tim, of course, found the right person to talk to about that, who said, go see Cardinal Kroll in Philadelphia. He did, and he took the Philadelphia Boys Choir over to Rome with the Today Show, and they got an audience with the Pope. And what was the significance of Cardinal Kroll? He delivered the North American delegation on the second ballot. So,
well, I say this, but there's a lot of politics going to be going on in the Sistine Chapel. I promise you.
oh, well, the good thing is, I don't know what they'll do. None of us ever do. What's the line that you go in as thinking you're a pope and you come out as a cardinal? That'll be true of most of them. But I think 108 of the 135 eligible cardinals have been appointed by Pope Francis. I think the one thing that assures is there won't be a right winger. We won't go back to the Benedict days. Whether there's someone in the model of Francis or not, we can only hope.
Well, I'm not betting is on. His name escapes me just right now. It's the Filipino cardinal. I don't know why. Just maybe, but I think that they had a Polish and then a Argentine. And it is a worldwide church, and I have no idea. I'll just be watching it like anyone else.
Heck, I watched the conclave and I had no idea who was going to win.
Right.
And there's also, as well as that Filipino, there's a mention of an African bishop.
The African bishops are pretty hard right.
And that's not going to happen.
I don't think that's good. And they tend to be very, I don't want to cast burn on one cardinal on me, but the African church is really conservative, particularly when it comes to LGBTQ plus issues. So I don't. What do I know? Who am I to judge? Which was the greatest utterance to ever come out of the mouth of the Roman pontiff.
Oh,
who am I to judge?
Well, he was an inspiration to people all over the world. Some conservatives say, well, he really didn't bring the different factions of the church together, as if it's possible that the Opus Dei Catholics were ever going to, bond with the Jesuit progressives on things like immigration. But you know what? The American people were with Pope Francis, 80% approval rating.
Right.
There aren't many politicians who wouldn't trade for that.
I can tell you what, they're not going to do that. But if Cardinal Burke were the Pope, I'd be out of here like shit through a goose. But that's not going to happen. So I'm not worried.
Does he get to vote? Is he under 80?
No, I think he's over 80.
Good. He should be disqualified.
He's also over 800 pounds too.
He's just a mean-spirited man. James, I'm going to swear this is an incredible switch to go from the saintly Pope Francis just to a brief conversation about the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. It is an absolute. Not only is it an absolute disgrace, and if the Department of Interior or Commerce were in chaos and disarray and fighting with each other, wouldn't be good, create some problems. When the Pentagon, when the United States military is in that situation, it is not only bad, it's dangerous. We knew this guy was unqualified. We knew he had a drinking problem. We knew there were credible charges of being a sexual predator, and yet 50 senators and the vice president still voted for him. Some of them ought to pay a price. They'll stick with him for a little while, but he ain't a long-termer, James, nor should he be.
So people know this. Every person in the armed forces has to learn the chain of command. That is the most sacrosanct thing there is in the United States Armed Forces, all right? At the top of the chain of command is the president. Next to the president is the Secretary of Defense. Understand. He's above the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He's above the commandant. He's above anything that there is. If Pete Hegseth told a member of the armed services, you got to charge that machine gun nest, you got to charge that machine gun nest. There ain't any choice. Yeah. And think of the great people that have been defense secretaries in the history of the United States. And this guy, how do they look at themselves in the mirror? in people that have a lot of military personnel, let's say Florida, that they represent, how can they tell these sailors and these soldiers and these airmen and these Marines and these guardsmen that I'm looking out for you? You can't. It's a fucking disgrace, is what it is.
Yeah, it sure is. And not only is it that, James, as you say, but we knew it. This
We
isn't
knew
any
it.
surprise. No one should be surprised that this
Nobody.
guy is a total disaster.
Nobody.
And
Nobody.
anyway,
Well, I didn't know. I thought he'd be okay. Oh, really? But
yeah.
under what reason did you ever assume that he had any business? And if he was a decent guy, you know he doesn't have any support among the senior Pentagon officials. He would quit for the good of the country, for the good of the armed forces. He would quit. Man, have some fucking guts.
He doesn't care about that, James, which is the anyway. Listen, this was really some great segments today, and we will be back.